Have you ever had a workout and said to yourself, man, that felt good? Or, man, that felt hard today? If so, then you're already familiar with the metric RPE, or rate of perceived exertion. What's up, everybody? This is Mario, and in today's talk, I'm going to share some things I'm learning about RPE, mental fatigue, and how it impacts endurance performance. So, just like in the past couple of episodes, today's episode is going to be some takeaways and some insights from a video that I watched from the Endurance Coaching Summit. And this talk was titled Perception of Effort and Endurance Performance. And this one was done by Samuele Marcora, the professor at the University of Bologna. And this professor, he received his bachelor's in physical education from Italy. He then got a master's at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, and then he got his PhD in exercise physiology at the University of Wales in the UK. He's also a consultant for Juventus, the football club, and a bunch of other big endurance teams in Italy. And he really focuses on the psychobiological model of endurance performance. So that's just a big fancy term for he focuses on motivation psychology, exercise physiology, and cognitive neuroscience. And don't worry if those terms kind of scare you a little bit. I'm gonna try and simplify it. So the main thing that he talks about is perception of effort. And perception of effort is that conscious sensation of how hard, heavy, and strenuous a physical task is. So it's different from other conscious sensations experienced during exercise, like muscle pain and feelings of fatigue, tiredness, or lack of energy, like your mood. It's just kind of that question of when you're running or you're cycling, how hard does that feel? And emphasis on the word feel because it is a conscious feeling. And in the lab, they call this term RPE, the rate of perceived exertion. And when they're training cyclists or runners, they ask them, how does that feel? And they ask them to provide a ranking on a scale of 0, which is no effort at all, to 10, which is maximal effort, the hardest that you could possibly go. It's that point where you believe you can't sustain this any longer and you just need to give up. So it's a 0 to 10 scale. And again, 10 is impossible to continue. And what Dr. Marcora did was he tested the hypothesis of how does mental fatigue impact RPE, the perceived exertion, and endurance performance. So here's what they did. They broke people into two different groups, a mental fatigue group and then the control group. And in the control group, what they did is they had people cycle for 90 minutes and they had them just watch a regular documentary. In the variant group, the mental fatigue group, they had them, while they were biking for that same duration of 90 minutes, they had them perform a cognitive task on a computer. So their mind was constantly working and thinking about something. Then after that, they did high intensity intervals until exhaustion. So between those two groups, the documentary and the cognitive task group, which group do you think performed better on the test? As you might guess, the control group, which is the group that was watching the documentaries, they didn't reach that time to exhaustion until 12 or 13 minutes. But the mental fatigue group reached exertion and they reached that exhaustion after 10 minutes. So the users reached the maximal effort quicker in the mental fatigue group than in the control group. And it was a significant result. So it kind of proves that mental fatigue can significantly reduce your endurance performance. And so that was a really interesting finding. He started to explain some of the physiological science behind that. I'm not going to get into that today, but I might talk about it in some other podcasts. But if we now know that mental fatigue can significantly reduce your endurance performance, what are some practical ways that you can deal with that either before or during exercise? And one of the most obvious is just keep training, because a well-conditioned body will reduce the perception of effort and increase performance. So think about it. If you get started and you go on a 20-minute run without having trained a lot, that 20-minute run may feel like a 5 or a 6 or a 7 on the perceived exertion scale. But if you do that 20-minute run after training for a month, that same 20-minute run may feel like a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or a 5 on that same scale. So the better in shape you are, the easier it is for you to complete the exercise. Now, Dr. Marcora provides a couple of other practical applications, like trying to reduce mentally draining activities before and during competitions. He provides some psychological interventions like self-talk, and then some substances like nutrition and caffeine that can help with that. So let's talk about a few of those. So the first one, avoid mentally draining activities before competitions. So try and avoid things like looking at your phone. Try and avoid being really stressed or anxious before a workout or before a race. And then obviously make sure that you get enough sleep. If you are mentally fatigued before your workout isn't going to be as good. This is another reason why I like to try and get my workouts done in the morning, because they at that point in time, I feel fresh after I wake up. I get a good workout in, and then I have energy for the rest of the day. Whereas if you're trying to develop a habit of exercise, if you find that you try and work out after work, let's say, that may be an example of something that could be mentally fatiguing, and you won't have as good of a workout. Other things that he talked about during exercise were this concept of cognitive drafting. So a lot of runners use pacers when they're trying to reach a specific goal. So one of the best marathoners in the world, he was trying to break the 2-hour marathon. So he had pacers that ran at the required pace in order to reach his goal. That way, he didn't need to look down at his watch and try and figure out, was he on pace? Was he off pace? Does he need to run faster? Does he need to run slower? Where is he at? How many miles is he at? Etc. You have somebody else do that take that mental burden for you, so that all you need to focus on is your form and your workouts. So that's one thing that you can try and incorporate during training. Another is to use self-talk and other psychological skills. So things like talking to yourself and saying, come on, keep going, go for it, dig deep, push it, you're a winner, you can do it, keep going, be strong. Those types of phrases can help reduce that metric of the perceived exertion from a high number to a low number, make you feel good, and can help you keep going longer. He did talk about a different study that they use self-talk in. I'm not going to go into it today, but I might do it in another podcast. And then one other thing that you can do during exercise that I want to add is just train in a route where you don't need to expend a lot of mental energy. So a lot of times what I try and do with biking is, if I'm going for a bike ride for an hour, hour and a half, I just try and find a route that I know works for me, and I don't need to think about, do I need to turn here? Do I turn there? How do I get back? How many miles? Am I going to reach the right amount of time? That mental energy that you're expending when you're thinking about that takes away from your workouts. So kind of just bringing it back to you and the main things from this talk. So mental fatigue can impact your workouts. So what are some things that you can do about that? Again, try and avoid those mentally draining activities before exercise. Try and implement some good self-talk during exercise, and just be aware of some of these things. That's what I have for you today. I hope that this helps, and I hope you all have an amazing day.